Chris Jericho found himself in the midst of a social media storm just before World's End, as Nick Hausman leveled serious allegations against him, hinting at undisclosed issues from his past.
Obviously, the Jericho part of it, for a lot of reasons, stood out to me. One of the things that is so disconcerting to me about kind of the universal praise of Jericho, and I'm not going to deny the points that Max made about the impact Chris had in the early days of AEW, but when you have that kind of clout and you have that kind of power, it's very important to use that responsibly. And I just, there are issues with Chris behind the scenes where I know of a lot of people who have been hurt by Chris and his actions. And, it's very uncomfortable to me to see him lauded as often as he is, with only the focus on that, because I do think that there's a lot of questionable stories about Chris that will find their way out over time. And when people are ready to tell those stories, that will cast him in a very different light. I mean, look, Harvey Weinstein won a lot of Oscars. Harvey Weinstein produced a lot of very popular films. Harvey Weinstein is now in jail. I'm not saying that's going to happen to Chris, but your narrative can very quickly turn if you're hiding a lot of skeletons in your closet.
It was claimed that Chris Jericho had made advances towards Kylie Rae in a hotel room, leading to her departure from All Elite Wrestling. The aftermath saw a surge of fans expressing their opinions on social media, particularly rallying in support of Kylie Rae. An old clip resurfaced, featuring Chris Jericho dismissing hush money allegations against Vince McMahon, adding to the negative spotlight.
And now all of a sudden, it's alleged that he paid someone off a good few million to keep quiet after an affair. Is there surprise within the wrestling industry that happened?
Not really. I mean, is there surprise in any industry when it happens? And really, when you look at it, it's really not illegal. He had an affair, paid the lady off to not say anything, and moved on. So it's almost like, okay, and people want to jump on it, but there's still always a undertone of it's wrestling. Oh, it's just wrestling. And if you look, that story came out with a bang, and then you really haven't heard anything about it since. Yeah. If this was, Hollywood with Harvey Weinstein and that sort of thing, but the difference between that was he was holding women back from getting gigs. Harvey Weinstein, either bang me or you don't get the starring role. This has never been said in Vince's thing. There was a mutual acknowledgement of this affair, and then he paid the lady to say nothing, and she took the money. So, I really know Vince well, and it sucks that it happened. It sucks that he did it, but is anything really going to happen from it? I really don't think so.
He's putting a public front on. He's certainly not acting like someone who's got anything to be ashamed of.
He never does. He never does.
The fact that he walked out on SmackDown straight away and announced SmackDown as if to say, "I'm what?"
That's Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
Fuck
and
you.
then he was at the UFC on the weekend. Like,
what are you gonna do about it?
Suited up. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that it'll come and go. And once again, is it morally right? Absolutely not. Is it illegal? No. Is it something that is going to get him in real trouble? I don't think so, because once again, unfortunately, it's just Vince McMahon. It's just wrestling. Of course he's going to do that. So, those things come and go and they happen, and it's too bad, but I really think it doesn't really matter in the long run. And, 6 months from now, I'll either be right or I'll be wrong.
With the situation escalating, there is a growing need for Tony Khan to address the matter before it spirals out of control.
Any update on the status of Kylie Rae? She's been a little bit absent.
She's no longer with us. We had so many things going into, so many announcements going into Battle Royal, but she asked for a release and we granted it. So she called me and asked if she could be released from her contract, and it was pretty simple. I said yeah, and I asked her if everything was okay, and she said yeah. She didn't want to be with the company anymore, and we talked about it, and it was very simple. And so yeah, she's not on our roster.
Seem amicable.
Super amicable. She's very nice.
Chris Jericho participates in an 8-man tag team match at the World's End show tonight. The live audience's reaction in Long Island will be interesting to say the least.